Good evening, everyone. This is the Groton Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, November 13th, 2017. We will begin the meeting with a public comment period, and that would be a 3-minute amount of time for anybody to bring up something that they would like to inform the board about. We may or may not be able to answer it this evening, but we certainly will get back to you with an answer if we can. That'll be followed by the town manager's report. We will have the selectmen's agenda scheduled. We will also consider an appointment of Lawrence Hurley to the Conservation Commission, and a vote may be taken. And then ratify the town manager, or potentially ratify the town manager's appointment of William Barron to the Commission on Accessibility, and a fiscal 2018 first quarter financial review. Adopting Chapter 48, Section 59A, authorizing mutual aid agreements between local fire departments. A vote may be taken on that. And review and consider approving the calendar year 2018 goals and objectives. Actually, this evening, we're going to just go through what they are and then follow up with a separate meeting to consider those. At 7:15, we'll have a discussion on approving a reduction in the building permit fee for the Indian Hill music project that is going on. Prior to that occurring, we will have our executive session minutes as they relate to that, discuss approving and releasing those. Under other business, we'll consider the release of those, well, I just said that, those minutes. And then we have additional minutes of October 2nd, October 17th, and October 23rd, regular session, and then executive session meeting of October 23rd. So with that, we will go to our announcements first. Does anybody have any?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to thank the fire department for inviting all of us, and Allison and I accepted the invitation to witness, and I can't say participate in, but witness up close and personal their training on the building on Townsend Road the Sunday before last. It was very informative in that it was awe-inspiring to see what our firefighters and EMT people do. It's a job I could not do myself, and I'm very grateful for the people who do it.
I heard glowing reports from the fire chief on both your participation.
But it's safe to say I would not be helpful at the site of the fire unless the chief was holding my hand.
Very good.
I also wanted to say that I attended the ceremony for Veterans Day on Saturday at the fire station. A really important commemoration for the veterans. I was surprised at how many veterans we have in this town who were there, many of them in uniform.
Thank you. Anyone else? What do you have,
Can I
Alice?
just tack on that the fire chief did reiterate and asked us to spread the word that they are always looking for volunteers interested in joining either the fire department or as EMTs. So if anyone is watching, I'm sure that they would love to provide more information and have folks join up. It takes a special kind of person.
Bless you.
Thank you.
It's really a good workout, though. You don't have to go to the gym if you go and do the firefighter training. I think that you can do both of them at the same time. And even though we use the term volunteers, people do get paid for fighting fires when they're there.
Very good. We'll move on to our public comment period. Before you go, Jack, Russ, do you want to make a statement about something?
I just have a question. I
Oh, I'm
understand.
sorry.
Excuse me?
Are you recording this meeting?
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's also being recorded, if you're not aware.
I'm aware of it.
Good, glad. I understand that the charter was approved by town meeting back at the spring town meeting, and I understand there's been a significant delay in that for various reasons, and I think it's important for the public to be aware what's going on in that. And I was wondering if we could get a status update from people on that issue.
Sure. I just found out about this situation last week, and I asked the town manager if he would speak to that.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Would you?
On the last meeting of May that the Board of Selectmen had after the annual election, the board voted to authorize submitting the approved charter to the legislature. On May 16th, we mailed the charter to both Senator Donahue and Representative Harrington. And they never got back to us, and they apparently never received it. I did not have any concern that we didn't hear from them, because when we did the charter in 2009 and we did the amendments, we didn't get called into the legislature until December for a hearing before the Joint Committee on Administration. So I was just waiting for them to contact us, and I was not alarmed by the fact that we hadn't received word from them yet. And when I worked in the town of Cohasset, when we did our charter amendments and we sent it in, it was actually January. When we sent them in May, we didn't hear till the following January. So I just assumed that that was the same process. In hindsight, I wish we had called, because when we called in October, Chairman Manoogian had asked, not this Manoogian, Mike Manoogian, had asked, he wanted to give an update to the 2017 Fall Town Meeting on the status. We called to find out the status. We're informed, what are you talking about? We never received the documentation. So two things that we learned from that: A, we should have called to follow up, and B, we should have sent it certified receipt. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm certainly not blaming us, because I know we mailed it. I'm not blaming them, because sometimes things get lost, and they didn't carry through. When we found that out, Mike Bouchard jumped all over it, and he worked very closely with with Senator Donahue's office, and we received a communication from Senator Donahue's office today, and Senator Harrington's office saying, hold on a second, let me get that exact email that I want to read you. This is from Mark Sternan, who works at the Senate. I've checked with Senate Counsel. All the attorneys have been pulled off local bills, likely until after the Senate ends formal sessions for the year on November 15th. However, I've been promised that this is in the queue and will follow up on November 16th with the attorney, who will be signed on it for that day. So it is in the queue, and it is going to be brought forward. But that led to me to think about, okay, the charter's been approved, and there might be some question as to, well, wait a minute, we have an approved charter, a new charter. What are we doing about that? And are there any gaps or things that we should be doing under the new charter that would be in place if it had been approved earlier? So I went through the charter today with the town clerk, and we went through each and every amendment that was made to the charter. And I'd like to take some time, Mr. Chairman, if I may, to go through that so that the public understands what is being done and what isn't being done with the new charter. I think it's important.
I understand that, but it's not an agenda item, Mark.
Oh, I understand. Well, the question was asked,
Period.
and I want to make sure people understand. Well, suffice it to say,
Give us your cliff notes.
okay.
The question was really about where are we, not
Where are we?
necessarily, well, what are we doing about it in implementing the charter?
Well, I also received a question saying today from a resident, wondering if things weren't being done under that should be done under the charter, that we're not doing and it hadn't been approved yet. So I thought this was an important exercise. And I will tell you, with one exception, everything that was approved in the charter is either substantiating current policy and formalizing it, and we're doing everything from collective bargaining to if fees are being waived, they're done in public, to appointments. The only thing that we didn't do under the new charter is the appointment of the Finance Committee member. But that wouldn't have been done even if the charter was received in time, because that was a June 30th appointment. So other than that, we're following everything that's been done, that has been approved in the new charter. Mike Bouchard joked to me today saying, so you're violating the current charter? And I said, no, just a little humor there. But I want the public to rest assured that it's in process, and we are following what town meeting wanted with regards to the new charter, with the exception, as I told you, of the Finance Committee. Everything else is being done. And the way we make appointments to boards and committees, I'm still bringing the name forward, and you guys are ratifying that instead of making the actual appointment. But it's still a process that I'm supposed to nominate instead of appoint to a committee, but you can't make the appointment without my nomination. So it sort of worked the same way. So I just want the public to be aware of that. I hope that answers the question.
Does it?
It does. I have another question. Were the other members of the board aware that the charter was delayed?
I was not.
How about Jack wasn't, Becky wasn't?
Yeah, I knew the October delay, so we had it linked.
Why was the town not made aware of this? Why did it? Seems like a fairly significant
Because I knew.
piece of information, and that the it would not have been made public except for my question here. And that's a real concern to me.
I believe the moderator at town meeting gave a public announcement that
Yeah.
it was in process. So the Board of Selectmen, by the way, this board has not met in public session
Right.
since that information came
Actually, I did
forward.
speak to the moderator, and he said he declined to make that statement.
Russ, just so you know, when I found out about this late last week, I talked to the town manager and asked him to make an announcement before you asked your question. So even if you hadn't asked your question, he was going to be making the announcement this evening.
And this is the first meeting of the Board of Selectmen on television since that information was discovered.
And the other thing that concerns me is that there's no member of the Charter Review Committee here, but my understanding is there's some question whether these should have been submitted to the legislators or should have gone directly to the Attorney General. So do we know that we are following, in effect, the correct process?
We are
Or should this have
following the
gone
process.
to the Attorney General?
We did not go through the Attorney General process. There are two processes that you can follow with the charter. One is that you have town meeting approve it by 2/3 vote. It goes to the Attorney General, then it goes on the ballot. That's process one. We chose the home rule petition process, in which town meeting by majority vote passes it, and then it goes before the legislature for approval. So that's the process this town decided to follow. We did not follow the Attorney General process. So it does not go to the Attorney General. It goes to the legislature, and once the legislature approves it, it becomes law. And I will also, the governor has to sign it, obviously. It is the same process we followed in 2009 when we did our first charter amendments.
My understanding was the reason we chose this process is it was supposed to be speedier than the process of going through.
So there was.
In
there was-
2009, if I may.
This hardly seems speedy.
No, in 2009, it did not get approved following the same process until December
That's not my.
of that year.
Okay. We're having a
Government
back
is
and
slow.
forth on this, and the bottom line is that mistakes occurred, and we're not exactly sure where they occurred, but the bottom line is it is now currently in process. Thank you. Mr. Risden?
Broken leg from the sheep. Anyhow, Jack Risden, 01472. I'd like to give a progress report on 01472. The tar bale still looks like a dump. The Pratt's building, still a mess. And there's water on Pepper Road up to the yellow line when it rains. But the main reason why I'm here, that's by Hill Road, the new building. Main reason why I'm here, a year ago from right now, I had dog trouble. Chasing my sheep, I raise sheep. And this last week, I had dog trouble again. And what it is, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Section 156, says any dog wanting, worrying, or maiming fowl, people, or livestock can be shot. And I want the town, the newbies that come to town, to know that Mr. Winchester's watching over my sheep. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jack.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, because he did mention Tarbell School.
Yes, you can give him an update if
Yeah,
you'd like. which
the
I've been
building
on.
permit was pulled last week to start that process. Yep.
We agree.
Yes, so that is in process.
Mark, do you know if there are any restrictions on the use of firearms within town limits relative to proximity?
500 feet, and I have 7.5 acres, so I can discharge it. And I think when the animal is after, the dog is after my sheep, the distance from a home that I live in doesn't matter.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so,
You can shoot off your own doorstep.
thank you.
Or you back.
Regardless of how close other homes are.
When it comes to protection of life and property,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Thank you. So
Do I need
everybody,
to be worried about anything with you, Jack?
everybody should be respectful of other people's livestock and control your animals, I think is what Jack Risden is asking. Or they're at peril of getting shot if they endanger the animal.
This dog is into me for $96. He's been here 3 times. And I have to go out, check the fences. I can't figure out, I think he's jumping the fence. Because there's leaves on the bottom of the fence. I don't see where he digs under. I don't see how he gets out.
Don't we have a leash law? Aren't dogs supposed to be dogs are not allowed to run loose.
When you're with the dog, it has to be under your control. We don't have a specific leash law, but the dog has to be under your control.
But
Correct me if I'm wrong,
Animal
Tom.
Control's aware of it too, the situation.
And we also, this particular situation, I had a hearing on it, it was a year ago.
Year ago.
Yeah, and we talked to the owners and we gave them a warning, and if they're not adhering to that, we'll take it up again.
And it cost them over $600
That's right.
last year.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we prefer that we can deal with it, neighbor to neighbor or through
No,
the
it
town
doesn't work
government.
that way. My sheep are in their pen, the dog enters. The neighbor, the people know, they've been warned by the dog officer and the police. They know the dog is on short time.
Understood. Thank you, Jack. Tom Delaney.
Quick little update. There's been some questions lately about Williams Barn. I wanted to give you guys a quick update. As you're aware, 2 springs ago, we realized there was a failure in the basement. Hired Valpress structural engineer to come in, did a design for us with a bunch of different options. We pursued CPC funding to make the repairs. We chose, I chased one option for a while and found out it really wasn't that feasible. And I didn't think it was going to be historically correct. We ended up going with another option, got quotes from 4 different vendors to do the project, First Gate Landscaping being one of them. Talked to and at the end of the quotation process, Earthscape happened to be the lowest eligible bidder. Talked to the town manager about any conflicts. We were there, done this in the past with other repairs at the barn. Josh filed his letters of disclosure. He came in, did the work. Barn's fully restored to where it was, probably better. We put new sills in above the stone walls, big granite sills, so we're not going to have this problem anymore. And came in $8,000 under budget. So there's a couple of questions floating around, so I just wanted to throw it out there so everybody knows what happened and what we did.
If I may, just want to make sure it's clear that the procurement laws were followed to the T. Disclosures were filed with the town clerk as is required. So there was no procurement issue whatsoever. I acquiesced as my role as chief procurement officer and had Tom Delaney handle all the procurement issues. He's a certified procurement officer in the Commonwealth because Josh is a selectman. I work for the Board of Selectmen. I wanted to make sure there was no apparent, conflict between Josh and I. Tommy handled it to the letter of the law. So I just want everybody to be clear on that.
And I'll follow up on this as well. I don't know why this issue is coming up, but certainly there may be the perception that the good old boy network was at work and Deegan and his company got a contract that maybe somebody else could have gotten. I've done a tremendous amount of work over the years of volunteer time at the Williams Barn, and we want to keep it historically appropriate. And there's very few firms that build natural stone walls, and we happen to be one of them. I have no idea what the other firms came in. I have no idea what they bid. Tom said, I can't get anybody to do it historically significant. Will you be willing to look at it? And I said, sure. So I came in, I put a price on it, I sent him the quote, and it ended up I was the low bidder. So in all actuality, my firm benefited from getting the work, but we ended up saving the town a significant amount of money relative to the other quotes. And please go look at it. It's in the basement of the barn. I'm very proud of it, proud of my guys, and very proud of my reputation. So there was no funny business going on here. Okay? Yes, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yes, when the subject of the Indian Hill building permit comes up, I would like to speak at that time.
Oh, sure, it's an agenda item, absolutely.
I understand. Thank you.
Malena, this is probably the busiest public comment period I think we've ever had.
And so I'm going to share some good
All
news.
good stuff.
I'm going to share some good news. There's 2 things that are going on in the district. One, we've been trying to get the district capital stabilization fund approved in both towns. As you know, it was recommended by both boards, Groton FinCom, Groton Board of Selectmen. 2015 spring town meeting, it was approved. Dunstable did not approve it initially. They had some questions. There was not a capital plan. question's been answered, and they now have approved it. So the district's plan at this point is to move forward and establish the capital stabilization fund. So that's the one part of the news. Other part is MASC conference took place about a week and a half ago, and the superintendent brought back some information that we're gonna be sharing with all peer boards. And it's actually some auditors that now consult for MARS, which is, Allison probably knows the term more than anyone, but Massachusetts Association of Regional School Districts. And they actually are gonna be coming to explain to school committee members, for education purposes, all the dialing down deep in both the Dunstable financials and the Groton financials, which I'm excited about, because all the hundreds of hours I look at both budgets, every school committee member is gonna really get a really in-depth understanding of abilities, restrictions, so you can better understand when you're approving a school budget that impacts the town. Is always important to know what financial status they're both in. So it's really a great opportunity. I'll let you know when it is, so everyone can attend to that meeting.
Will it be one session for both towns or two separate?
It's going to be one session because we actually have to pay for them to come and do it. So we're actually going to try and do one session, keep costs down and get everyone in.
Thank you for the update. I did speak to Marlena over the weekend, or last Friday, I believe it was, concerning the stabilization account. And Mark and I spoke when we found out that Dunstable had approved the capital stabilization account within the control of the Groton Dunstable School Committee, and went to town council. And would you like to update us on what town council's opinion was relative to that?
Absolutely. Town council said that as long as the school committee has not taken another vote relative to requesting that a capital stabilization fund be approved, and that the Dunstable vote was based on the vote that the school committee took back in 2015, our vote at the Springtown meeting in 2015 is valid. So was there
we're in good
another
shape.
vote by the school committee?
No, we actually never took a vote to recommend the municipal control district capital stabilization fund. We appreciated that, and quite frankly, all the help we're gonna need for Floro is wanted, but the reality is, our intention and our goal to get that district capital stabilization fund to allow our district to play a positive financial role in trying to save money independently of the towns towards our capital expenses to offset those capital expenses to our bulk member towns have never changed.
All right, so the vote that was taken on February 11, 2015, which was to establish a stabilization fund pursuant to section 16G1/2 of chapter 71, and to set up an operational line item for the transfer of available monies into said fund, there was never a second vote. That's the only vote the school committee has ever taken on the issue.
Never. We've taken,
Okay.
well, we put it forward for Dunstable twice, obviously, but only once to Groton because we had to put
But,
it twice.
see, that's what the confusion is. If the vote, if there was another vote relative to that, because when the school committee votes, it's to establish the fund, not to have Groton do it, not to have Dunstable do
But
it.
that is how we voted. We voted to put forth a warrant to Dunstable. We didn't put forth a vote to establish a cap stabilization fund.
That's where town council will be a little, he would be
Yes,
more
that's-
comfortable if we.
That's exactly what our council has said.
So we don't debate this any further than the public comment period. As I alluded, we had a lengthy conversation last Friday, and I think it would make sense for the school committee, the town administrator, the finance advisory committee, and the towns of Dunstable, along with the town manager, our town accountant, our FinCom, and this Board of Selectmen should sit down, because we did just approve a municipal stabilization fund for the Groton Dunstable School Committee under the control of town meeting, and seeded it with $500,000. Simultaneously, it appears now that we may have a stabilization fund within the district. So that would be two stabilization funds. And we need to understand the dynamics of how all of this is going to work in order to meet the capital needs within the capital plan that's been approved by the school committee. So I would suggest, and I already did this to both school committee members that are here, that we have this meeting. So if we could work to set this up, you could host it, we could host it, but we need to understand the mechanism, so when it comes time to appropriate money to meet the capital needs for a given fiscal year, we all understand how that's going to work.
So I agree we need to have a meeting, but I don't believe it needs to include Dunstable. The reason why I say that is because Dunstable made it very clear when they met with the school committee. Myself, Ryan, Jennifer were there several meetings. They have no interest in establishing a municipal controlled cap stabilization fund because they have a stabilization fund which they feel is perfectly fine to use for the schools and the town. Respectfully, I'm not going to make them explain to me or try and convince them to do otherwise because it's not in my purview. However, if you want to discuss that with them, by all means, that's fine. But our school committee, what is in our purview is to want to establish a capital stabilization fund, our district capital stabilization fund, and that is our intention.
Let's have a conversation to go over the logistics of how it's going to work. And we can be between the school committee and the board of selectmen, and it should be on a future agenda. And I think it can be a very logical, easy, reasonable, that all this fits together and all of it really works very elegantly together. And by the way, it's how I envisioned it from the beginning. So let's just.
Do we all have to be part
Yeah, I
of
see
that?
no reason.
No, but the one clarification, I just want to make sure that the town stabilization fund, the more stabilization funds, the merrier. The more money we have to pay for stuff that needs to be done, have at it.
Right.
But my concern is the vote taken in
The
2015.
Right.
I want to make sure that our vote is legal based on action of the school committee. That's what town council is concerned about. That's what I'm concerned about. If there was a second vote by the Groton Dunstable Regional School Committee after February 11th of 2015 requesting a stabilization fund, it doesn't matter if they directed it to Dunstable, doesn't matter. It's a second vote. That invalidates Groton's first vote in 2015. That's town council's opinion. I just want to make sure we're all clear on that. So
But
that's
a
my
meeting
concern.
of us isn't going
No,
to resolve
no,
that.
no,
So-
no.
That sounds to me like the issue to be resolved. It sounds like it'd be resolved with you,
Yep,
town council.
yep. And I'll talk, and I'll
Council
keep
for the school
Marlena,
committee,
absolutely.
And you can come back to us and let us know what we're
Sure.
dealing with.
Right, and to let you know, added information, I've already reached out to DESI and the Division of Local Services Legal Counsel, because our lawyer, the municipal district's lawyer, the municipal lawyer, we're all gonna have many opinions. I'd like to get the opinion of the legal counsel that can come after our town if we do something incorrectly, and that would be the Division of Local Services Legal Counsel. So we're actually gonna get those opinions as well, and the moment I get them, you will see the forward of the email.
Fair enough.
That's good. I just want,
Right.
I'm happy to have many stabilization funds. I just want to make sure it's right. That's all.
Does anyone else have any comments? But wait,
What?
there's more. Miss Ellen.
Goodness. I'm gonna
Miss
leave.
Ellen, Main Street.
I'm sorry.
I want to know what the status of for the IT department to have people sign up for meetings that aren't meeting at a certain time or certain date.
I received an email from Selectman Petropoulos last week concerned about the process that we're following in terms of doing it in-house versus buying something off the shelf. I think Jack raised some valid points. I talked to Josh about it. And one of the things that we're looking to do, and I met with Mike Chasin and Mike Couchard today, Mike Chasin has some strong feelings as to why he wants to keep it in-house as opposed to going out and buying it. He's
I'm
giving
sorry,
me-
what are you talking about, keeping it in-house?
Having us design instead of buying it off the shelf somewhere, keeping it on our
Design
website.
Buying what?
So our town
Buying
website,
software that does what Ms. Ellen's asking for.
our
Which
town
is?
website is homegrown, and it has a bunch of functionality in it, ranging
Right.
from dog permits to looking
Fire
at minutes.
permits, burn
There
permits,
are-
all that.
We built that ourselves. Instead of building it yourself, you can buy these things. Every town near us buys hosting capabilities, and these functionalities, such as what you have asked for, are already included in it, and it's just a matter of laying it out. So I've asked Mark to expedite a process of looking at whether or not we should be buying this functionality rather than building this functionality.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. So what I'm suggesting is I talked to Mike Chasin about it today, and he gave me a lot of examples of area towns that have things that they buy off the shelf and then they have to do some work on it to get it to work. And he also gave me examples where one of the towns that has this functionality has been looking to the company to make a fix, and they've been ignored for a while, and they've signing up with all the other towns that sign up for the functionality to sort of force them to do it. So there are pluses and minuses to both. So to that end, and Alice, I'll be happy to sit down and talk to you about this in more detail. Mike and I want to sit down with Jack and Josh and Mike Bouchard.
And the
to
IT
talk-
liaison?
And the more the merrier, maybe you instead of Josh,
Yeah.
and talk about what makes
Certainly, I actually
more
might-
sense.
How about just Barry, because then it is not a violation of the open meeting law.
Sure. But the point is we're working on addressing Miss Ellen's concerns and Jack's concerns to make everybody happy.
Okay.
Which is my job, is to make
So
everybody
now-
happy.
I'll do it.
I think that you may have raised this before the election, and Allison and I are only surmising what it is you were actually asking for because we weren't here when you first asked.
Okay, what I'm asking for is there are certain committees that do not meet the same day every month. They have different meeting times, and I'm interested in fully attending them. And so other than looking on the town website every day to see when it is, I thought I could sign up for something, and they can tell me when the next meeting is.
Push
Functionality that would
notifications.
allow a resident to
It's an
sign up,
RSS feed.
to subs,
Let's not talk about the technology that would be used. There's many different
Just
ways.
allows,
Yes, thank you.
allows residents to sign up to be notified of things.
Right.
As
Whatever
well
you
as it
choose.
would give the ability, if we got that, to codify a process for submission of minutes of the various meetings.
All kinds of
Um,
functionality that towns need. All towns need the same functionality. These people build this, just like Microsoft builds a way for you to write documents and do spreadsheets. These people build a way for you to do a town website.
So why don't I meet with Barry and Mike and Dawn
And report
and
back to
report back
us.
to the board.
How's
You and I
next
can talk
Monday-
about it
how's
Wednesday
next
morning.
Monday feel, don't you?
I'm ready whenever
Whatever
you
works
want.
for you guys.
I'm ready whenever you want.
Very good.
Okay, the other thing I wanted to understand
Now,
is.
Miss Ellen, you only get one question.
No, come on.
I'm joking, Miss Ellen, you know that.
I know that, there was a meeting, last month that was canceled, the same day. It was at 1:00 in the afternoon, I think it's about disaster recovery or something. And they canceled it. And I happened to go to the meeting, and I found out when I went to the meeting, it was canceled. So my thought is, how can I find out something's canceled before going there?
Well, when a meeting gets canceled, Mr. Chairman, we alert the town clerk, and he posted on the website that the meeting's been canceled.
But this was at 1:00 in the afternoon, and I had things to do in the morning.
It's a challenge. All of these things are a challenge, and there's going to be no technical solution that's going to solve everything. We'll try to get it as close as we can to make sure that we can get as much notification to the public as fast as possible and in many varieties as possible. But at the end of the day, the public has to be paying attention to those medias for them to get the message. And if they're not going to, we can't do anything about that. Everybody gets busy, and these are going to get slipped. But it is possible to solve many of these problems with technology, and we'll look into this.
And there are committees that are listed on the list of committees that do not list a regular meeting. And so unless you're, as
10
you
minutes.
said, looking at the calendar thing, you know, several times a week, you're not gonna know.
That's it.
Okay, so, anything further, or can we begin our agenda? Thank you. Selectman Pease is going to be leaving at 7:45 due to a previous commitment. And I would ask the town manager to hold his report and to move forward to the Indian Hill building permit. Before we move forward that discussion, does anyone want to offer a motion to release the executive session minutes as they relate to that?
I will make that motion.
We have to approve.
You have to
one
approve
of them
the
first.
first set.
Yeah, we have to approve them.
We didn't approve the second one
Yeah.
yet.
We approved the first, but not the second. So that's down at the bottom of the
October 23rd.
agenda, executive session minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I've reviewed them. Is anyone else?
Yes, I have reviewed them.
You okay with them?
Well, I thought we'd already approved them, but since we haven't, I'm going to ask for one slight change. I'm sorry I didn't do this beforehand, Dawn. And now I gotta find it. What page? am I
It's on page
The last
30 and 31.
30?
Could be, yeah, 30 and 31.
Josh, when Barry leaves, we'll put him on speakerphone.
Yes.
Okay. On the second page, the first paragraph, towards the end, Mr. Petropoulos asked Mr. Haddad if he saw any bullying or negativity. I would like you to add from the selectmen.
That's fair.
So I'll make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of October 23rd as amended.
And release.
Can we do it all in one?
Yeah,
You
you
could
can.
do the
You can do
October
that.
23rd at the same time.
And release, you could do
You
that.
can do that.
Okay, and then we'll release the 10th as well?
Or just do this set and then we'll do the other,
Okay.
please.
To approve as amended and release.
Motions are
I'll
made
second it.
and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And
Make a motion to release our executive session minutes of October 10th as well. Is that the right date?
was that the correct date?
I think so.
We already approved them. I
We
just don't
approved them.
recall the date.
Yeah, I think it was. It was October 10th, yep.
Motions are
Second.
made and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Now, moving on with the agenda item, Mr. Town Manager.
So the Board of Selectmen began a negotiation with Indian Hill on their building permit. Originally, a subcommittee was set up of Selectmen Pine and Petropoulos to conduct the negotiations with myself. We went through several iterations of that. On, I believe, on October 5th, the Board of Selectmen, the subcommittee held a meeting and released all the minutes and updated the public on their work with regards to the negotiations that they conducted with Indian Hill. Those have been publicly released meeting minutes.
Can I just
Please.
interrupt? I
Yeah.
Actually, I think that was October 10th. I think it's the
10th.
same day.
Same day, okay. October 10th.
And there, the meeting, the minutes of that meeting on October 10th, I'm not sure we've ever approved.
No, you have to approve those. They've been drafted. You
You've
have
written them,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, they've
Yep.
been written, we just
Yep.
need to
We
approve
just
them.
need to approve them.
But I don't think, maybe they've never come.
They were approved and not released.
No,
No, those
we're
were
talking
released.
about
No.
the subcommittee. of
Subcommittee.
us
Oh,
Yes,
approving that.
those were
Apologies.
released, and they're public documents for anybody that wants to see them. Since the negotiations did not go anywhere, I contacted town council, asked town council if the full Board of Selectmen could meet in executive session for their work in terms of negotiating the permit. Because it had to do with the value of real estate, we went into executive session. You've released those minutes tonight. And based on the many discussions, and there's a lot of information that you can get out of the executive session minutes, the Board of Selectmen voted on October 23rd to set the building permit fee for the Indian Hill project, including gas, plumbing, and electrical, at $400,000. That includes $60,000 that was already paid for the foundation last spring. So 2 weeks ago, Indian Hill, the contractor for the project, delivered a check for $340,000 to the town for the building permit, and that building permit was released.
There was a contingency, it's important to note, in that the intersection work we done 3 months prior,
Correct.
and we did receive a letter from the Indian Hill
Confirming that.
confirming that.
Yep.
Prior to
3 months
Prior
prior
to
to the building
occupancy.
being live or active or used at
occupancy. permit.
occupancy permit or whatever, official.
That is correct. Jack?
So I had actually asked for this agenda item here today, so I prepared a few things I'd like to say, including some facts that are just a little different than what Mark stated here. It's important that,
Apologize if I was
that's all right,
unfashionable.
it's just a minor mistake. It's important that we review these facts because all of this, up until just now, has been done in executive session, with the exception of an announcement where we couldn't actually talk about anything because everything was done in executive session and notes hadn't been released. So I thought I'd bring you all up to speed. So Indian Hill Music sought and received an approval for a 120 square foot facility. From
120,000.
120,000 square foot facility from the planning board. They posted a bond to guarantee that if they abandoned the project, it would be returned to its former state. They were required to make and finance modifications to mitigate expected traffic, modifications to Route 119 and Old Air Road. They agreed to these things. They were given a provisional building permit to start construction on a foundation. Select Persons Pine and I were authorized by this board to work with Indian Hill to complete the building permit process. We worked with Town Manager Haddad and the building inspector to come up with an approach. And our approach was that we would work off of a full building permit fee, like any permit fee is constructed in our town. And we would try to offer options for payment over time and other options that might make it easier for Indian Hill to stomach this fee. But Indian Hill refused to provide a project cost for this project, and the project cost is a foundation for a building permit fee. All building permit fees are calculated off the project cost times 1.2%, and Indian Hill Music refused to provide that cost. They stated that the reason for that was A, they didn't know the cost, and B, these are among the reasons, B, that the cost was intellectual property, and theirs is a competitive environment. They didn't want the competitive intellectual property of cost of a building to be known. So what was really important, though, was to get to a building cost that was realistic. Whether it was given to us by them or not didn't really matter. So the town manager, the building inspector, Pine and I, came up with a proxy cost of between $50 million and $70 million, actually $48 million and $72 million established. And we established that. And what we did was we used the industry standard construction costs for 120,000 square feet of building of between $400 and $600 a square foot for this class of office space. Just for context, when we were interviewing construction managers for the senior center, we got a per square foot cost for the senior center expected at $450 a square foot. It's not perfect because that's municipal building cost. This is a private project, but it gives you a good example. Our senior center, $450 a square foot. So, given that building fees are calculated at 1.2% of project total, at $48 million to $72 million, a building permit would be between $575,000 and $874,000 at 1.2%. Add on top of that the cost for plumbing and electric fees permits, which is about another $100,000, and you have building permits that should have been expected to be in the $675,000 to $975,000 range. We established for working purposes a point in the middle, $776,000 as our expected full building permit cost. Building permits are not just building permits. They're a form of revenue to our town, just like real estate taxes, just like motor vehicle excise taxes, just like meals taxes, just like property taxes. They're applied to minor renovations, to additions, new construction, the Groton Inn, the Hindu Temple, virtually every private project ever built in Groton. They're assessed in a progressive manner, meaning that the more valuable the project, the more the fee, and it's linear. It's fair that way. We did some research. According to the town manager and our building inspector, we're unaware of any issuance of a building permit to a privately funded project where that project cost was not disclosed, nor are we aware of any discount ever offered. In fact, as some may remember, and as Josh, you and I participated in vociferously, when efforts have been made to discount building permits for community icons that had a financial challenge from recovering from a disaster such as a fire, the discounting or waiving of building permits was soundly rebuffed. When underpayment of building permits by others were discovered, it resulted in a public outcry and reconciliation of the building permit in the past. On October 5th, Indian Hill Music construction project manager informed the board that Indian Hill Music intended to cancel all or part of the project if the building permit was not reduced to a price of $300,000. Let me just repeat that. We were told if we don't reduce this permit cost to $300,000, Indian Hill stops construction on all or part of the project. On October 6th, a member of the FinCom and Economic Development Committee contacted one or more members of the Board of Selectmen to lobby the members to issue a permit on behalf of Indian Hill. On October 10th, the board met in executive session, removed Select Person Pine and me from negotiation, and by a 3-2 vote, agreed to offer an all-inclusive $500,000 permit. Indian Hill rejected that, and stated that the 70,000 square foot performance hall portion of the project was going to be mothballed unless their demand for a $300,000 fee was honored. On October 23rd, the Board of Selectmen, again in executive session, voted 4-1 this time to offer a $400,000 permit. We exited executive session, went to a meeting in the cafeteria of the middle school while the rest of the town was entering town meeting, and we announced, as is our requirement to the public, but untelevised, that we were going to grant this $400,000 building permit. At the insistence of one selectman, I'll wait for Barry to leave.
Excuse me, my children need me to pick them up. Everybody have a great night.
At the insistence of one selectman, the board agreed to have this conversation that we're having tonight. Indian Hill Music retracted their insistence that the permit be reduced to $300,000 and accepted the permit at $400,000. These are the facts. Right? Anybody disagree with any of these facts? All right.
I thought the
So I've got-
500,000.
So I wanted to lay out these facts first because it was important because none of you had a chance to see any of this happen. And now I want to give you my opinion on these facts, and I've got 4 things I want to discuss. The first is the Board of Selectmen effectively, by reducing this fee, provided a taxpayer subsidy of between $275,000 and $575,000 to Indian Hill Music. We'll never know the amount of that subsidy because Indian Hill Music was allowed to not declare the project cost. And so we were never allowed to calculate the actual value of the project or of the building permit. This ability to state zero on a construction project is it's an ability not offered to anybody in our town. No one in our town is allowed to do that. If you did, I encourage you to try it. Go to the building department, next project you're doing, and say, I'd like to declare zero for my costs. See what happens to you. It was a fact. And what really this ends up being is a $70 to $140 contribution to Indian Hill Music per household in our town. When you take the total deduction, the total savings they had in permit cost. And all of this was done without public debate. Number 2, by capitulating to Indian Hill Music's threat of terminating all or part of the project, the Board of Selectmen demonstrated our inability to represent the town capably in negotiations. The idea that Indian Hill would cancel or scale back a project with $5 million of cement already in the ground and construction bond in place that required them to return the project to its former state is just, I can't think of polite words to describe the fact that someone would believe that is possible. By agreeing to an all-inclusive $400,000 permit, Indian Hill Music demonstrated that its $300,000 or we walk position was just that, a negotiating position. They came up from $300,000 to $400,000. That's a 33% rise in their position. They played us, and we fell right for it. We fell for a cost containment strategy at taxpayer expense by professionals who made us look like amateurs. We announced our decision over protest in the least public forum possible. We're only here tonight because a stink was made. In a year when we declared $2 million in free cash but couldn't find a penny to return to taxpayers, we found a way to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to a private entity. This offset Indian Hill's operating costs or their mitigation costs. Assign it to whatever they want. We offset their costs. We did it because, for a variety of reasons, we thought that it wasn't fair. They were mitigating the problem of traffic that they created themselves. We did it because we thought it would bring us economic development. Well, if you believe the Board of Selectmen is good at promoting economic development, take a look at Boynton Meadows. We got a $400,000 hole in our wallet. Lastly, and most importantly, we did the thing that people hate most about government. We granted privilege to a special interest, an interest that had special connections, an interest that already enjoyed an amazing financial benefit of tax exemption in the first place. We're not talking about the special privilege of passport fees or country club discounts. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money to offset a private entity's costs. We paid for that privilege at the expense of taxpayers. Taxpayers who are prohibited from enjoying similar treatment. I am unbelievably angry. I'm disappointed in this board. to just say that I've led the nonprofit coalition. No one's more supportive of the nonprofits than I am. I want nonprofits to succeed. I stand up and say what we should value in what they do. But this, I cannot stand for this. I'll also say that I am proud to serve with these 4 board members here, but I just cannot believe that they allowed this to happen. Thank you.
All right, Jack. Rob, you're going to have to wait for us to go down the board, and then we'll go to the public, okay? Allison?
So I appreciate, Jack, your willingness to step up and have your say. I think the appropriate time for raising all of these points was during the discussions prior to a decision being made, and you raised many, if not all of them. I think that the job of a committee, once a decision has been made, is to uphold that decision. And I think that your current behavior undermines the efficacy of this board to get things done, as well as in the perspective of the community. I think a project of this magnitude, which I'm not sure we have ever seen as a town, will always be a negotiation from start to finish, and that it's inappropriate on your part to have set forth a could have been scenario from one end of the spectrum that somehow paints a picture of us having given away hundreds of thousands of dollars, when the other end of the spectrum is simply that this project wouldn't have unfolded and the detriment would have been tremendous as well. So I think it's unfortunate that you are so vocal in expressing your disappointment with the board, and currently I'm feeling similarly.
May I respond to that,
my
please?
board member peers.
If you need to.
I do. So the opportunity to discuss this was during our discussion. That all happened in executive session.
Absolutely.
We debate spending a few $1,000s on putting stuff in a lake in public. We didn't do any of this in public. So yeah, I had an opportunity to convince you during an executive session, but the public is entitled to know how we reduced this, how this happened. The public is entitled to know that, and they would not know that. Read the open meeting notes on October 23rd and see how our open meeting discussion was handled. We actually expected to keep this quiet.
That's not, Jack, that is so
read
not
the notes.
true.
Read the notes, the last paragraph of the
If you
notes.
think that there are things that weren't included in minutes, either of executive session or open session, that should have been, again, the appropriate time to bring those to the forefront is when we are approving minutes.
I'll read you
If
the
you
quote.
feel like the executive session minutes were somehow lacking, this is not the time to raise that. I think that the minutes accurately reflect the tremendous discussion and difficulty that went into making this decision.
Read the last minutes, the last paragraph of the 23rd, meetings from the 23rd. And with regard to the supporting the board's decision, I understand your interest in not having someone come out and talk about this. But I am here to represent a public who is, one or more of whom are unbelievably outraged that we did this, and they need to hear this.
Okay. I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, it's amazing, Jack, how you always feel you're right, even when you're wrong. And you are so wrong here, it's unbelievable. Okay? You are putting out numbers of $450 to $600 per square foot for construction. And those numbers could be, in my belief, are closer to $350 to $400 per square foot. So you're guessing at numbers. Maybe I'm guessing at numbers. Okay? But my belief is that the permit was somewhere between $650,000 and $750,000. So I don't dispute the number that you're coming up with, other than I believe it to be lower. It certainly was higher than $400,000. A few of the things that you're not taking into effect or looking at is the charge of a board of selectmen is economic development for a town. And we have historically been a town that is not business-friendly reputation is what we've held. We have got a tremendous opportunity for a performing arts center to come in to benefit the citizens of Groton, to benefit economic development within the town. And there is no question that the intersection of Old Air Road and Route 119 is woefully inadequate and not safe in order to access for the current needs of town. It's a very difficult intersection. And if we were to take on the re-engineering of that intersection to make it a safe intersection, right now, Indian Hill has spent about $40,000 on the traffic study and $58,000 on civil engineering. That's money that this town would have had to spend. In terms of constructing, the estimates are $210,000 along with traffic control measures of $52,500. And all of those numbers are based on not prevailing wage numbers because the town is subject to putting out projects at prevailing wage, which typically run 30% higher than what someone could do non-prevailing wage. So collectively, to redo this intersection would be between $300,000 and $400,000. Granted, Indian Hill had to do this and advertised that they were going to do this as part of their approval process. No question about it. As a matter of fact, I pushed hard for them to do that myself. But that doesn't negate the fact that as this town grows, this intersection was going to have to be dealt with at some point, and it was going to end up falling on the back of the taxpayer. So, moving further on, to throw Boynton Meadows into the mix is just a bitch slap in the face that you did not need to give, okay? It was an investment that the town made, the town meeting voters made, Jack, and it was a bad investment, and a bad person is managing that project, okay? And bottom line is, you want to bring out all the trash? Well, guess what? You're going to smell it right now. There's more issues. In terms of mothballing the project, you think they played wolf with us? Did you go up there? Did you see them? Did you see what they were doing? Well, what they were doing was they were filling in the Performing Arts Center. And the intention was that they were going to mothball that for a number of years until the rest of the building in the school was up, and then we're going to build it at some point in the future. That is fundamentally against the economic development principles that we should be aspiring to as a Board of Selectmen. And if we have to do something in order to stimulate a project that can bring economic good for the town, that can offset the residential tax burden, which is 96%, and bring in other businesses to help that, then I'm all in favor of that. So, at the end of the day, we took a permit that in my estimation was worth $650,000, brought it down to $400,000. The largest building permit to date in the town of Groton prior to this permit, I believe, was $210,000, Mark? Correct. And this is double that. And I have no problem, and the Board of Selectmen is within their purview to negotiate and to reduce this. By a 4-to-1 vote, this board chose to do that. You being the one who chose not to. And now you have the audacity to tell the taxpayers, and I use the word audacity, to tell the taxpayers that they're being treated unfairly because the board used its discretion in order to stimulate economic development. I'm aghast and I'm very disappointed in you, and that's what I've got to say.
So, may I respond?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it.
So you say the town isn't business friendly and that waiving a building permit is the thing that makes us business friendly. Our building permits are advertised, they're known, the dollar amount is known by everyone that comes in, everyone pays the same thing. There's nothing unfriendly about having someone pay a building permit that everybody pays. Nothing unfriendly about that, Josh. The intersection at Old Air and 119 is inadequate and safe. Mark, do you recall when I asked you for traffic studies on that intersection and safety issues on that intersection and the results of that?
That was, what, about 6 months ago?
Yeah, when they were applying for this permit. You remember what the results were?
Jack, I don't. I have
There
to
was
go
no
back.
safety issues at that intersection. Zero, none. I can't remember any time when we as a board talked about spending a penny. In fact, even discussed that intersection, never mind talked about spending a penny. So the idea that we were going to have to do it at some point because it's unsafe doesn't pass the test of history, either our statistics or the discussions we've ever had. And the idea that they were going to mothball that, Josh, and that they started filling it in, but now they're digging it out again because we saved them $300,000. I don't know where you get that. I don't know what planet that could possibly come from, especially when there's a performance bond that says if they don't complete the project, they've got to return it to its natural state.
No, if they don't complete the project, this was a portion of the project they were mothballing. Mark, did you witness it with me?
I was there, and they were capping it, yes.
And are they not capping it now, or are they taking the cap off?
I have not been out
It's
there
still
since.
partially capped because they're not working on that portion of the building.
I find that if you believe that this $300,000 is the difference between capping and completing or not completing a 70,000 square foot building at, call it 500, that's $35 million building. I find if you believe that, I'm worried about our other financial responsibilities.
I think it's generally best to believe what applicants are telling us,
Oh,
to trust the people with whom we're doing business.
you mean
but
like either 300 or we walk, and then when they get you down to 400, they say, okay, so we should have believed they're 300?
I think in negotiations, it's generally best to assume that people are telling the truth. But if you know better and differently somehow, then that's something to discuss, certainly.
Absolutely
would
was a
like-
negotiation, no doubt about that.
How about we give Becky a bite of the apple? Barry, are you there still? I'll take that as a no. Barry? Okay, sorry, Becky.
First of all.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but
Can you
Becky's
hear us?
speaking
Let
right
him
now.
go, let him speak.
Actually, Becky's deferring to you. Yes, would you like to weigh in on this?
No. I'm just making sure you can hear me. Go ahead, Becky, please. Don't let me interrupt. Here.
I urge anyone who's interested to read the minutes that we have released. Those will make it clear that I was not happy with the way that the other side of the negotiating process handled the process. I do not agree with your statement that Jack is totally wrong on this. I do not dispute the facts that he listed. I was willing to see this as it is, the largest project that has ever come to this town, and probably the largest that will come to this town, at least in our lifetimes. Because of that, I was willing to consider a different way of evaluating to achieve a building permit cost. I proposed that in our meeting. And I was willing to look at the very low end of the estimate of the cost of the project in order to calculate that building permit cost. I was very offended that that amount was seen as not low enough, and that we were threatened after that, and that calls were made to lobby members of the board by people who had direct connection to the project. So I was very unhappy with that process. In the end, yes, I did vote for $400,000. I think that they are an organization that will add a lot to our community, but unfortunately, the way that they have started off with us is not particularly positive in that regard.
Thank you, Becky. Barry, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. One moment. I am also texting my kids, let them know I'm parked, ready to pick them up. Just 1 second, please.
Or do you want me to defer to the public, or?
No, I've got it now. I just needed to send that text. Thank you.
Okay.
I think it's ironic that, I'm one of those people being called out for putting everything behind executive session when I was one of those people that said, why aren't we doing this in public session? But let's take that away from the issue here. This is an opportunity to move forward. This is an opportunity to make a different form of what Groton can be and will be. And in making that decision to authorize a fee based on the idea that it would be prosperous for the future of Groton, I encumbered myself with that decision. And that encumbrance means that now I'm responsible for helping to make sure that we move forward to be economic development stewards of the town and not just be a passive bystander and let other committees do it for us. So that's my commitment, and I'm satisfied that this is one of those areas of vision that Groton can now move forward from. It was a very hard decision for me. It was just as hard as the decision not to make a hotel fee when the inn was coming about. Yet I do not recall any of this consternation when when that was decided we wouldn't pursue that right now. So you know what? That's okay. It's good to be able to flex and move based on how you feel about a particular issue at a certain time. But the future is what matters, and the future is that we've got to embrace this opportunity and use it to Groton's benefit and use it for Groton's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Anything further from the board? Public. Mr. Hargraves.
I want to stand up because I'm sitting here. Excuse me. We'll leave this here.
Can we raise that?
Figure out how that goes up or I'm broken. It's not the last time I was in my car. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have listened with interest to Barry's conversations here. And first of all, this is a 501c3. We all know what that is. I'm not going to explain it. And I went to all the planning board meetings on this issue. Now I live over that way, perhaps a little further than most of them. And if you're watching Mr. Manager, I'm not going to mention names. I've known him since he's 10 years old, probably. And I witnessed all of these hearings. And I saw the bullying that he was talking about. I saw it. So with anything that was said about bullying in here, you didn't use the word, it's true. I've seen it firsthand. In fact, and today I just learned about this project, this reduction in the building permit. It's not the first time that one has been attempted. There was one that a selectman got involved with, and the town got an extra, where they should have gotten $141,000, maybe give or take a few dollars. Executive session is my real bone of contention here. It should have been thought through. This is so important that it should have been an open session in perhaps a series of meetings. But
I agree.
And that didn't happen. So now we're getting it all after it's happened. And the open meeting, I believe you took a vote, I don't know, but anyway, up there in the cafeteria, there are no cameras, none at all. And I have to say, as having some experience in the town and the state, I am very disappointed that you went the route and allowed yourselves to be bullied. Now, we can talk about negotiations. You didn't have to negotiate. No. You owed them nothing. But you did. I'm going to use the term $250,000 of taxpayers' money. I don't know if it's more or less. I don't want to get into any of that debate. But $250,000 is what the taxpayers of the town of Groton are going to be contributing to this project. Now, I want to say this and make it very clear. No one loves the music any better than my wife. She goes to many of their functions. I go to some, but that's just me. But she's gone to these for the last 30, ever since it's been around. I think it's over 30 years. It's a wonderful program. What they want to put together is a wonderful program. I know who's behind it. Wonderful people. I'm a little disturbed at what I picked up in here. If a FinCom member was involved with this at all, he should be dismissed. Should be dismissed forthwith. I've said enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further comments from the public? Mr. Lindemer.
It's my understanding that Indian Hills will, since they're a nonprofit, they're not paying property tax. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we gave them a discount on the building permit. They're not paying taxes, real estate taxes. What indications have they given about a pilot?
Zero. They refused to discuss the pilot during this conversation. They were asked and they refused.
So the economic development that would be associated with Indian Hills has to be some multiple greater than an equivalent commercial project. If we're to realize it, a commercial entity would probably have paid the building permit, maybe would have paid real estate taxes, and Indian Hill is not. So, and they have not given any indication at all. They refuse to discuss it. I would hope that if it's a negotiation, that goes a little bit better than the building permit negotiation did.
I think it's safe to say that all of us would hope that, Kevin.
Question, Connie Sartini.
Connie Sartini from the Groton Herald. I have a couple of questions, if you'll allow me. First of all, how many other building permits has the Board of Selectmen reduced?
Mark?
Not zero.
Not zero. We don't do it until this one.
Okay, thank you. And I did hear someone mention that there was a member of an appointed board that lobbied the Board of Selectmen regarding this issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
That's what I said.
would you be kind enough to tell me what member of the FinCom?
No,
Why?
because the individual is not here, and I don't think that would be appropriate.
I think if you've brought it up, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, that it's not unreasonable to name an appointed official who's clearly lobbied your members, or at least some of your members.
The issue is that the individual is both a member of the FinCom and our Economic Development Committee and married to an individual associated with the Indian Hill project.
Thank you,
Well,
I know the name
That
now.
clarified that for us without
Yes, it did.
mentioning any names.
Well, I think it's important, personally, this is my personal opinion, that townspeople be aware when things like this are occurring, and that the Board of Selectmen have a lot of sunshine on it so that people know what's going on. Thank you.
Ms. Sartini, I don't disagree with you in terms of what you just said, and it irks me that this occurred as well. But I think that if we are going to call in the individual in question, that this board schedule is that as a separate agenda item to address that directly.
That's fine. I think that's appropriate.
Mr. Risden first.
Jack Risden, 01472. I've said it several times, this town has no business being in the real estate business. And it shows the Tarbell School, the Squanicook Hall, and several others. And my bid on the fire station in West Groton is still $10,000.
Fair enough. Mr. Hargreaves.
Just one question, and that is, I'm going to ask you as a citizen of this town to not renegotiate, but to withdraw what you've done. To withdraw.
Fee's been paid, permit's been issued, can't do it.
He's what?
The fee's been paid, the permit's been
We
issued.
voted on it, and they've
We're
paid it.
stuck. We're stuck. We've made our bet. Now we're going to lie in it.
Well,
Commend all the selectmen on making a decision whether it be for or against on it. Just a couple things that I know from a little bit of history. If you know the people who are working on it, and you don't think they...
People can't hear.
Yeah, they can.
Sure they can.
Close is better, okay.
Okay.
If you know the people who are, well, so I started off by commending all selectmen for all decisions you guys made one way or the other. I know it's hard either way. Knowing the people who are involved in this and the contractor doing the job site, if you don't think he would have picked up and walked away, I know he'd have picked up and walked away. He's there. That's just the way they are. Oh, one other comment comes from a lot of contractors in town when they come to Groton, they come to do work here, greedy Groton for the permit fees. That's our reputation.
Thank you, Tom. Marlena?
Hi, I know the permit fee is the done deal, and that's done, and I'm not thrilled about the executive session on it either. I would have liked to have attended myself. But I guess my question is, I understand they will not talk about a pilot, but is there any opportunity of opening discussions with them? And there's many different ways that a nonprofit can help our town, and especially with such an elaborate music program and our school having such a poor music program overall. I'm just thinking there's got to be other ways to have discussions.
The answer to your question is, we were advised not to bring up the issue of a pilot payment in conjunction with the negotiations on the building permit fee, because we didn't want to look like we were trying to extort something out of the group as part of that. The pilot payment needs to be discussed, and absolutely has to be discussed, because there will be a cost to this community to provide services outside of the police details that will be required for this building. You know, public safety, fire, EMS, things along those lines. There will be impacts, and we do need to begin discussions with that. And I would, now that the building permit fee has been negotiated, whether you agree with it or not, I would ask the town manager to reach out so we can begin those discussions.
Just a quick correction to two things.
It's too soon. It's too soon. It's too soon for that.
The first is that a pilot was
Well,
discussed.
I will ask.
The pilot was discussed, and when we were told that they wanted no part of discussing a pilot, we made clear that a pilot was not a requirement for the issuance of a building permit. We didn't want to be accused of using a pilot to leverage something that they're entitled to. So, correct, we did discuss a pilot, and we're told that they would not discuss a pilot. So, I want to be clear about that. And secondly, and Josh is right, this facility will cost us money, a lot of money to support. Unfortunately, we are now $250,000 to $300,000, $450,000 behind where we could have been.
Fair enough. Marlena?
Just one follow-up question, and I'm not even sure if this is appropriate, so please feel free to beat me by asking. But the question is, when it comes a time to discuss with the nonprofit about pilots and different programs, do you think it would be appropriate for not only the town manager, but perhaps the superintendent, because there are other ways, and at the end of the day, our town has to pay for our schools and our municipal services, so maybe there's more than one way to help our town.
There are ongoing discussions with the nonprofit coalition on exactly that. All the nonprofits in town are asked to find ways beyond pilots to contribute to the town. The Indian Hill, for instance, has been asked to work with the schools to offer music curriculum and take advantage of the assets that they have available to them. And I know that there have been discussions with the schools on that, and with any luck, they'll continue.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Allison?
I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I think I agree with Barry that kind of raising the issue of a pilot right now is probably a little premature. I think it would be beneficial, at least for me personally, to have a better understanding of pilots in town in general, kind of where they are now and what the history has been for those. I don't know if that's something we can...
We've had those discussions in the past, and certainly the minutes from those, as well as how much the nonprofits are paying, which ones are paying a pilot and whatnot. Mark, can you provide an update?
Yeah, well, I
on
just
that?
want to let you know, I received a pilot payment today from the Groton School for $113,000. I was going to announce that under my town manager's report if we ever get to it.
You just did.
There I go.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that's an increase of $3,000 over last year's payment.
An increase of 13% over a three-year period when we started working with the Groton School through this nonprofit coalition to ask for various ways of contributing. And I disagree that it's too early to talk about a pilot. A pilot is payment in lieu of taxes. When a property comes off the tax rolls because it goes to a nonprofit, the nonprofits are asked to pay a payment in lieu of taxes. This property is now off the tax rolls.
It's been off the tax roll since 2010.
Yep. It's off the tax rolls, and it should be, and we should be compensated with some form of payment to plow the roads, provide the fire and police and EMS protection that they need. So it's
Yeah,
not
let's
early.
forget that the legislature said that's illegal, but that's okay.
Well,
You cannot tell them they have to compensate us. That is against the law.
Nobody said that they were going to tell them they have to compensate us, although we and other towns do write letters asking for pilot money, and other towns have been far more forceful than we have. Actually, we've been very good partners to the nonprofits.
Yes, so let's advocate for it. Let's do it smartly. Let's not do it in a way that's going to make people want to resist it. All right, let's sit down, let's have a nice conversation outside of this one, which is already charged. And nothing's going to come out of this conversation except for a bunch of vitriol and a perception that we're going after to make up for something. And that's not appropriate. And having this conversation now when it's not even on the agenda is against our codes also. So we need to table this and put it on the agenda for a future meeting.
Certainly, Barry, I don't disagree with you. A member of the public asked the question, and I think the responses you're hearing are from that question. And we will add it to a future agenda, and I'd like to begin as soon as possible. So Mark, can you please put that on?
I wrote it down.
Thank you, Barry. One more, Bob Hargraves.
Just one thing that, as Mark knows, I gave him a copy that 1996 I negotiated a deal with the two private schools coming to Boston in the Speaker's office to pay from that point on, and Groton would also, to, if a house is sold, it's bequeathed or given, or however they obtain that property, that they would pay in lieu of taxes, the amount of the taxes that were on that would be on that particular section, and that this would be discussed once per year with the basically the town manager and one or more of the selectmen at a meeting with the headmasters, not the headmasters plus the chairs of the trustees. And that's in writing, Mark has that.
I don't believe that we discuss it. I think the town
We don't discuss it, but they do it.
administers
They
this.
do it every year.
Yeah.
They have been doing it.
Yep, they've been
and-
very good about it.
And it's an important thing to note, and that's much appreciated.
And thank you for getting that for us, Bob.
Certainly, one thing that's worth noting is that the Indian Hill property, where the music school is going and the Performing Arts Center, is my understanding could support approximately 11 homes along with the infrastructure for a roadway to go in. And if 11 homes did go in there and the value of the home was, say, $700,000, and we were able to tax that home at $700,000, and those homes had 2 children each in them, that this property would cost us more money than the tax revenue it brought in.
That's an upside down argument. That is so upside down.
is
If that argument was true, then we would have, how many homes in Groton, Mark?
There were 4,000 parcels.
4,000?
Yeah.
We'd have 4,000, that's 4,000 homes, each costing us more than they bring in, and we would be broke. That is short-sighted analysis.
That assumes every home has children in it.
Well, that's what you just did. You just said that these homes would cost us more than they bring in
They-
taxes.
I don't think
That's
that-
Mr.
short.
Chairman, can I
Let's
suggest that
move
we
on.
move on to the town manager's report, because I know there are a lot of people here aching to hear my report.
Well, it's,
Thank you.
so basically, that's how this Indian Hill project had a negotiated building permit, and I'm sure we're gonna hear more about this in the future.
We should.
I'm sure we will. Mr. Town Manager,
Mr. Chairman, the Conservation Commission, members are here tonight, have recommended that the Board of Selectmen appoint Lawrence Hurley, I believe Mr. Hurley is here tonight, welcome Mr. Hurley, to the commission to fill the vacancy caused by the resignation of Susan Black. The term would expire on June 30th, 2019. Mr. Hurley's here to answer questions, Peter and Olin here to answer questions. As you know, the routine that we follow is when there's a vacancy on a committee that the board makes appointments, we seek input from that board. We take their recommendation. We try to meet with the candidate who's here tonight. Mr. Hurley comes highly recommended. I've spoken to John Smigelski as well about this at length, and John is very excited about bringing Mr. Hurley on board. So I would ask the selectmen to consider making that appointment this evening.
I'll make that motion, and I'll just say, I'm the liaison to the Conservation Commission, and I was unable to attend the meeting where the interviewing was happening, but from what I can tell. Looks like it's a good decision.
You can meet him at Earl's.
I certainly know Mr. Hurley is very good with working with land and working with buildings, and I think he'll be an excellent addition to the commission.
He's also a good representative of the Lake region, which we don't have one right now.
That's correct.
Great.
And that would be a good thing to have. Anything from any other board members? Motion?
I made that motion
I
to
apologize.
Second.
appoint
If
Lawrence
Barry's
Hurley to the
still on the
commission.
phone.
Barry, you still there?
Yep,
you
I'm
need
ready
to
to
do roll
vote.
call.
So
Go
this is
ahead.
going to have to be a roll call vote. So there's been a motion made to recommend the selectmen appoint Lawrence Hurley to the commission, and seconded. Further discussion?
Just make sure that the motion has the expiration date of June 30th, 2019.
Yes, I said that when I made it.
Okay, thank you.
It has been said. Roll call vote?
Metropolis, aye?
Peace, aye.
Pine, aye.
Manugian, aye.
Deegan, aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Hurley. There'll be a letter in the town clerk's office over the next day or so. Please make sure you get sworn in before you attend your first meeting.
Yes, tomorrow night. I talked to the town clerk already tonight, and told that I'd be in tomorrow.
We'll have a letter there. Give us till noon time.
I think she
There
does.
Oh, it's already there? Oh, Dawn is good.
Big works there.
Go right away. Thank you, Dawn.
Josh
Make sure you
Miguel
do
asked me
conflict
to
of
make
interest
sure
training.
that if I did get appointed
Make sure you
tonight,
do the conflict of
you
interest
guys were
training.
aware that the paperwork had to get over there.
Perfect.
Very much.
You're welcome.
You can say that.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Mr. Chairman, I've appointed William Barron to the Commission on Accessibility to fill a vacancy on that committee.
I'm gonna run.
I'd ask the board to ratify that appointment this evening.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motions are made and seconded. Further discussion? Roll call vote. All those in favor?
What was the
Bob,
process to get to this point?
Mr. Hurley? Mr. Barron? Same process. I asked the
Okay.
Commission on Accessibility for a recommendation.
Okay.
That's who they recommended to me.
Thank you.
I should have been clear on that, Allison.
Just checking.
Yep, no,
Well,
good question.
and do we know how they advertise? I mean, it's just a curiosity.
Well, he came to a couple meetings, he came to a couple meetings, so we know him.
So you recruited him?
Yes.
That's usually how it happens on those committees.
Okay.
Roll call vote?
Metropolis, aye?
Pine, aye.
Peace, aye.
Manugian, aye.
Deegan, aye.
Mr. Chairman, this is the time that we bring the quarterly financial report. This will be the first quarter of fiscal year 2018 to the Selectmen. As usual, Patricia did a phenomenal job tracking our expenditures, giving you where we are. When we looked at this, I want to make one little point. When you look at the public safety budget, you see that we're at 23.72%, and we should be at 25%. You would think after a quarter, we're doing pretty good. We had a horrendous October with regards to the public safety for a variety of reasons. So the next quarter, we might have a problem within our public safety departments.
So are you calling out that being under 25, or are you just noting that even though we're under 25, it looks like we may be outpacing?
That's what I'm pointing
Okay,
out.
thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm pointing out. We are working on that. This is the time that I wanted just to alert the board to that. But overall, you will see that our receipts are looking good in terms of percentage received versus what we did at the same time last year. Also, we're in pretty good shape with expenditures overall. You'll see that, employee benefits are up at 67%. That's because we pay the county retirement assessment, which is $1.8 million up front in July. First rec in July, I believe, first expense warrant in July. So I'd say overall, the town is off to a good start in fiscal year 18. I'm expecting that to continue. If you look at percentage-wise this year versus last year, we're pretty close. You'll see next time some of the departmental revenue will exceed where we were at this time last year, based on a couple of permits and things like that have come in. So we're in great shape financially, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has. But fiscal year 18 is off to a good start.
Board members?
I'm just wondering if this is a standard report and how straightforward it is to run it with kind of one more level of detail. is that?
This is not a standard report,
It's created through
yeah, it's
the
created
finance committee.
Okay.
specifically. We do have budget reports that we can run at pretty much any level of detail that you want.
Okay.
This was more of a high level, sort of an executive summary that the Board of Selectmen had requested in order to be able to kind of identify where things might be going off track as early as possible, but it does not give us a very large amount of detail. We do break out salary and wages on the next page, on page 2, because that is occasionally.
Page 2 didn't get in here, my bad.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Well, if you don't have it, we'll make sure
We'll
you
get
get
it
it.
to
But
you.
that's one of the cost drivers, and so we do that separately. But if there's something
No, yeah,
specific
I
that you're
didn't
looking
know
for,
what pages, I'm sorry.
we could add it in, but then it would be in there, pretty much forever. But it's just an Excel spreadsheet.
Allison, what detail are you looking for? Because we can get you anything you want. You want to see the drill down to the various departments? We can give you the monthly update.
Yeah, that, I
Okay.
mean, some of it is more just
Absolutely.
trying to get myself more familiar
Sure.
with the budget
Absolutely.
than it is anything else. I'm not expecting to find.
This was only really meant to be a management report, a report to understand trends and project where we are compared to last year, and see if we're on track for last year. So if you see an anomaly, to then either ask, which these guys always know the answer, right down to the line item, or go drill down to those line items if necessary.
Yeah, but I mean, it allows you just to quickly look at burn rates and things, and then there's the anomalies
Seasonality.
you know, I think Mark pointed out about the prepaying of the pension costs.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's at such a high level that within any one of these categories, there could be 2 things that are of concern that are balanced out by 2 things that are doing far better than anticipated. I mean,
Absolutely, and that's something that the accounting department does track for you, and hopefully we let you know these things so that when Mark's delivering this presentation for you guys, he can point out where something looks like it's tracking at 25% where you'd expect it to be, but be careful because we're going to see a change next quarter. So hopefully we don't ever let you down in that respect.
Not yet, not at all.
At least somebody in this room doesn't let you down, Jack.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any other questions that the board has with this. I want to thank Patricia for her great job that she always does putting this together.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia.
And again, I
Yes.
want to stress that the town financially is in fiscal year 18, we're tracking the way we should be tracking. And of course, if there are any other anomalies that come up, we will let you know right away, because I don't want the Board of Selectmen to be surprised on anything. So, that said, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any other questions, I'll go to the next item in my town manager's report.
Please do.
It's come to our attention that the town has not formally adopted MGL Chapter 48, Section 59A, that authorizes mutual aid agreements between local fire departments. We've been doing mutual aid, and we have signed agreements with towns, and mutual aid is a thing that, thank God we have it. It's very good for our residents, it's good for the other communities that serve us and we serve. We got a public records request on it, and so we produced all of the agreements, and then it was discovered by the town clerk that we never really formally adopted 4859A for fire department. So town council is recommending that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Section 59A, Chapter 48 of the General Laws to authorize the Groton Fire Department to go to the aid of any other city, town, fire district, or area under federal jurisdiction in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or in any adjoining state for the purpose of extinguishing fires therein or rendering any other emergency aid or performing any detail as ordered by the head of the fire department in such community or the Joint Base Cape Cod Fire District. I'd ask the board to make that motion and vote it this evening.
why is the Joint Base Cape Cod Fire District called out specifically?
You know something? I learned that, and I had that same question, and I meant to ask town council. I didn't. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but apparently that's a separate fire entity in the Commonwealth. The Cape has a lot of special laws.
Anyone want to offer a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion as printed in the town manager's report.
Motions are made
I'll second it.
and seconded. Roll call vote.
Metropolis, aye.
Pine, aye.
Peace, aye.
Madugian, aye.
Deegan, aye.
By the way, when we were at our firefighter training, we talked with the fire chief a little bit about the mutual aid, and it's particularly important to us because Groton is so large. Most of us know that Groton in area is the largest town in Middlesex County. And so we are very dependent on mutual aid because there are sometimes that an adjoining town's firefighters can get to the site before ours can.
And was there anyone from Cape Cod there to help you put the fire out?
Well, I didn't go and ask them all specifically, so I can't answer that question with 100% confidence.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
No.
No.
I was just making a comment that I interrupted the flow.
Guilty of texting at a meeting, I apologize.
Busted.
Busted.
Mr. Chairman, item number 6 of my town manager's report. The Board of Selectmen, each member submitted to me goals for the next year. I did my best to put them together. What I did is I tried to group, because board members had similar goals. I tried to group them together as best I can. There were some blanks in here in terms of, the process to meet the goal and how we get there. So what I would like to suggest is to give me the opportunity just to state what those goals are tonight so the public has an idea what the board's working on. I think there are too many goals here. I think we want to cull them down because as we discussed last year, Jack and Barry and Josh will remember, if you have too many goals, you don't do anything well because you're trying to do too many things. So we actually had a vote, and the board voted, and whichever got the most points actually made it to the goals list. So I'd like to follow that same process this year, but what I would like to suggest is we have a workshop to discuss these in more detail when the board can just concentrate solely on those. So I'm providing them to you this evening, and I would ask you to schedule a meeting in the near future.
Next Monday night?
Fine. If you want to start a little bit early, that would be great. I'm not sure what we have on the regular agenda for next week, but I'd like to start.
Could everybody start at 6 p.m. next Monday?
Yes, but are you expecting that the 1 hour will be the workshop on the goals?
I'm not sure what I have on the agenda, Becky, for next week. There might not be anything else for the board to, Dawn's looking it up right now. There might not be anything on the agenda for next week, so we might be able to start at 6, and if there are things that you have to take up, we can take it up, or we can just concentrate on goals.
I would say go from 6 until 7:30. I mean, we've had these meetings, now they're here in front of us, and we should be able to go through them. I really think an hour and a half would be enough. No?
I don't
I
think an hour.
disagree. I don't think that would be anywhere near an adequate amount of time.
Yeah,
We
right.
need 5 hours.
I agree. This is a half-day workshop.
Okay.
I mean,
No,
for-
we do, we have a lot, we do have a lot on the agenda for next week.
All
Well,
right.
let me suggest something. Instead of trying to cram this in, I understand where Becky and Allison are coming from. This is their first time really jumping in on the goals with us, so I'm sure it's going to take more time. I agree with you. Why don't we pick another night that it's just solely this and only this as a workshop? And we could schedule 3, 4, 5 hours. Maybe a Saturday morning.
Let's get it scheduled now, so we can get this done, okay?
Would the
Rather
board
than
mind
talking-
doing a Saturday morning?
Sunday morning.
I'm fine with that too.
Good.
Let's make sure that it's televised though, so we don't get any challenge later when we're not televising these things.
Well, workshops we generally don't, but I'd be more than happy to have Bob Coleman here on a Sunday morning at, Bob?
Wait, did we agree Sunday?
I have not agreed.
I'd like to do a separate time for this.
Agreed.
You tell me when. Let's not back this up to another meeting, and if it takes 7 hours, great. If it takes an hour, great.
I would do Sunday.
I think too, just as a suggestion, that it would be helpful if everyone kind of prioritized their top 3 to 5 goals out of this,
Yep.
so that we could come in and not have to hash through the logistic of it, all of these,
No,
only
I've
then
gone
to
through-
discover
I've
that
gone-
we don't agree.
I agree, I've gone through them like 3
Yeah.
times now, and I think that, that's an easy thing to do.
So, do we want to pick a date?
Would you do Sunday?
That's a good step.
Jack, are you serious about Sunday?
Yeah, Saturdays are pretty precious at this point.
Well, part of Sundays aren't.
I'm just saying, to me, they're precious. I'm not
I
here to
understand.
value your Sunday or Saturday or Tuesday.
I could do Sunday the 19th.
I believe I could be here Sunday the 19th.
What time?
What time are we?
Like
what
9
time?
o'clock in the morning?
No, I cannot do Sunday morning, the 19th.
Nope, I'm busy all weekend this coming weekend.
Okay, so forget that.
So
How about the 26th?
the 26th?
Nope,
I
we are
have
away.
family in for Thanksgiving. How about,
Is it possible to look at like
Tuesday the 21st?
Tuesday evening, the 21st?
I might have a conflict that night, I'll have to let
It
you
does
know.
not work for me.
That doesn't work for you?
How about Tuesday evening, the 28th?
Tuesday nights do not
What
work.
about Wednesday, the 22nd? Let's just work from,
Absolutely
The night
impossible.
before Thanksgiving,
I-
impossible.
No way.
all right, so what
38
about,
people coming to my house, that's not gonna work.
What's a few?
I don't think
Wait,
38
whoa, whoa,
people
whoa,
in your
whoa,
house
hold
is gonna
on.
work.
I don't remember getting an invitation.
I know, Josh, I think that the rest of us need to be invited to
All right,
your
so what-
extravaganza.
Are we on the B list?
I understand that turkeys get cooked 3 different ways at your house,
How
right?
about
They do,
Thursday, the
it's-
16th?
It's true.
I cannot do this Thursday.
Do we have to have you there for our?
No, you do
concert?
not.
I can't do it this Thursday.
Okay,
I cannot do it this Thursday. I am not available from Thursday 16th until our meeting on the 20th.
all right, how about Tuesday, the
How about,
21st?
how
You
about
just
the,
said no.
how about the 20th, beginning at 4 PM?
No.
Well,
That
and
doesn't
then
work
we're
for
gonna
Jack.
go through the whole evening?
If we had to go, I was gonna say 4 until 8, and then do regular sessions starting at 8. I'm trying to make this work.
That doesn't work for Jack at 4.
Doesn't work for
Go
me.
ahead without me if you want, that's fine.
No, I think all 5 members need to participate in this. It's an
Can you do
important.
5, Jack?
No, 5, maybe 5:30.
So Sunday, the 26th in the afternoon, did that work or not?
Nope.
We're not doing well here.
Nope.
How about Wednesday, the 29th?
What time?
Start at 5:30. That's what Jack
5:30
can do.
PM, and it's the only thing on the agenda. We just go right on through.
Do you want it televised?
No, you can't start something on a non-Monday night at 5:30. I won't ever make it.
All right, that doesn't work.
What
But-
time can you
But
be
we
here?
could start, I mean, it's,
It needs to be a 7 o'clock meeting on a non-Monday night.
okay, but it's the only thing we're doing that night, right?
Yeah, but if you guys want to spend 4 hours, that's gonna be a long night, but
Yeah, you don't
I'd
want
be
to go
willing
7
to do it.
Let me ask a question. Ordinarily, we do not meet the Monday after Thanksgiving as a regular session,
Oh,
the 27th. You have no regular meeting that night. That is a night that you don't meet, and that's the first night. And the reason we don't meet that is that's when we're in the budget, and I'm doing budgets all day. And it makes it very difficult for me to prepare for a selectmen's meeting that night. But if the board wants to meet the 27th, and do that, if Dawn and I can't be there for that, have at it.
so how early could we start?
Start at 5:30 on the 27th?
Sounds good here.
Barry, can you do Monday at 5:30, the 27th?
Yep, I can do flex on Mondays.
Allison,
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
let's do it.
That's good. But so that's our workshop evening, not a regular agenda.
No, there'll be no other items on the agenda other than goals. The question is, do you want it televised?
Yes.
Bob, can we have somebody here at 5:30 on the 27th, please?
Should we set up a subsequent night?
No. We should stay here at 5:30, and we should go through, and we should codify and choose which goals we want, and let's move on.
So what is the definition of a workshop session?
We
Workshops,
take
no public
questions from the
input.
public.
No public input. It's just the board. The public can be here, but you do not take any public input. That's a workshop.
Okay, do we have to have it televised?
Well, Barry requested we have it televised, I believe.
Personally, I don't think you should televise a workshop. I think a workshop should be a workshop, but was
Oh,
Barry,
no, we're not
Barry
getting the situation again where something gets done behind and the cameras weren't there to see it and we get called out for it later. So we're televising it.
Understood.
Okay, I will just say, Barry, that I happened to hear an interview with someone who was going off of the, maybe the Federal Reserve. And the question was asked, your meetings are held in private? And the answer was yes, and your minutes don't get released until for 5 years. And this person, who was very articulate and well-spoken, said, you know, what happens is there's never any opportunity for brainstorming and having the kinds of, you know, what would happen if, or the kinds of really expansive thinking. Because if people are watching and they're gonna, you know, jump on you for having had a ridiculous idea, and after some discussion, it turns out nobody likes the idea, it's not a good idea, it dies. But if you, and that was his explanation for why their meetings were not publicized at all. And I guess that's the concept that I'm getting at, that if people want to come and watch, they can. It's a posted meeting.
Federal Reserve, I'm sorry, tell me when you're done.
It's a posted meeting, and if there has been a tradition on this board of having workshops to do certain things where you might actually have some deliberation, some brainstorming, some back and forth, and some decision making that way, I would like us to try it.
I think it's fair to.
So the Federal Reserve is a board that conducts policy on a magnitude that is far beyond the ripples of what it affects. And for them not to publicize their meetings, and because someone has an idea and someone might take that and write it in the Wall Street Journal, I actually think that's probably a good idea. But for anything to happen to the Board of Selectmen, and if you recall, I was adamantly, steadfastly opposed to having our Indian Hill discussion in executive session. So, you know, we are not going to come up with anything around these goals and discussions that's going to be disgusting or awe-inspiring or challenging. That's ridiculous to think that we're going to be less free. If we cannot be free to do our job in the public view with the cameras rolling, then we shouldn't be doing our job. And it's just that anything other than that, I don't understand. If we don't want to be on camera, then why are we doing this? If we don't want to be doing the public's business, then why are we doing this?
Okay, Gary, I get your point. We're not the Federal Reserve. I think we should be transparent. I think we should have the cameras. Bob's just thrilled to be here at 5:30 on...
Look how happy he looks, really excited.
2
Calm
weeks
down.
from tonight, we will meet at 5:30. The cameras will be rolling. The public's invited. We will have no public participation. Sound like a plan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can very quickly just go through the goals so people know what you'll be discussing. I don't want to have any comment on them now because you're going to be talking about them on the 27th, if that's okay.
However,
it's like your own little workshop. We don't even get to comment.
That's what I like.
but however,
3 minutes.
you consolidated
Yep.
what you got from people,
Yep.
and
I tried to do my best.
and I know you did your best. You didn't necessarily read everyone's mind, and there are some things that got translated from what I had submitted, not necessarily didn't come out with the same intent or the same meaning, and so.
You know, that's why I responded to yours with my notes. I hope
I
that
know.
made sense to you.
It made sense.
Good. Well, we'll talk about it.
But
at the
it
workshop.
doesn't mean that I'm not going to still say something.
Understood. And I apologize. I'm not telling the board not to speak, obviously. I'm just trying to go through it.
Listen, can you keep this to 8 minutes?
I'll keep it to 3.
3. Go.
Align, under government, align committee, employee and committee goals and objectives with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager goals and objectives, so they're all on the same page. Consider renaming all town positions to be gender neutral, starting with the term selectmen. Develop a strategic plan for the town of Groton. Continue to improve communications with the public. Develop cohesive working relationship among board members. Develop a strong working relationship with the school committee. Recruit more volunteers to serve in town government. Take leadership on issues which affect us locally and nationally without unnecessarily bringing national controversies and divisions into the deliberations. Creation of a formal stance policy and process regarding recreational marijuana. Review impacts from current zoning districts and requirements. Develop and execute an economic development plan. Under municipal buildings and infrastructure, support the Prescott Community Center to become a viable, sustainable asset to our community as a town-owned resource. Under budget and finance, enhance the concept of performance-based compensation. Reduce the impact of the town budget from the use of sick time. Determine the annual growth of the municipal budget. Determine if the town should apply for a regionalization grant. review results of the matrix audit, create a strategic plan incorporating audit recommendations, do an annual review of the town's financial policies. By the way, if I might add, that is a town charter requirement, so we would do that every year anyway. And then under affordable housing, support efforts to create more housing that is similar and less expensive for our seniors who wish to downsize and remain in Groton while on a fixed income. I think I did that in a minute. So those are the goals that the board will be reviewing on the 27th. Obviously, we'll get into them in great detail and talk about them. And I know, Becky, there were some issues that you had.
I would ask that Becky clarify what it is that you didn't capture the words to convey her thoughts on, and forward that to Mark so he can forward that to us. So that'll help us think about it prior to that Monday night. Is that fair? No?
It might be smarter to just do it as it arises.
Okay, if that's what you need to do.
I'll take a look, and if I
Okay.
feel like there's really something that should be clarified.
I hope I tried, it was hard
That's
because
all.
there was so many different goals, and I was just trying to consolidate them as best I could. So, and that's why, Becky, on yours, I wrote back to you and said why I did what I did, so I hope that made sense.
It did help.
Good.
How many are here, Mark?
Was that?
How many goals are here?
About 13?
Yeah, I think so, 13 or 14.
Thank you.
Very good. So what else do you have, Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Manager?
that concludes the town manager's report. You've already done your other business. We have Selectmen Liaison reports, and then there are 3 sets of minutes, October 2nd, 17th, and 23rd.
So why don't we take the liaison reports? Anyone have any?
Yes.
What do you got?
All right, so this is as a public safety liaison, and also it is an update on regionalization issues that is one of our goals. I have reached out to the MMA, and through several conversations, I've engaged many different party support, and I'm trying to navigate the political echelons to align several of the potentials behind our idea to, behind Steele's idea, to regionalize our EMS services. This is gaining traction. I will be working on this aggressively over the next couple months. I will keep the board updated, weekly on any progress that's made.
Very good. Allison?
Yep, I just want to bring folks up to date around the marijuana work that's going on. Aaron Green came to the EDC last time we met and spoke to us at length about kind of similar conversation that unfolded here. And then the working group that's working on this met last week, I believe, to finalize some brief survey questions that will be going out to the public digitally as well as in electric bills to try and get some more information about where the community's concerns are and aren't. And then we anticipate having some forums in January, February timeframe to better understand the pros and cons of the myriad decisions to be made.
Okay.
How does this align with the statewide progress of marijuana facilities? And I mean, there's going to be something of a land rush, right? When at some point, as states' court providers or towns' court providers to come to them.
Right.
And
So
how are we in terms of our timeline relative to what other towns are doing?
it's hard to know at this point. Most of the towns are hung up, as we are to some extent, because the Cannabis Control Commission at the state level hasn't issued anything and doesn't anticipate doing so for several months. Around April 1st, those operators who are currently operating medical marijuana facilities, whether in Groton, which there aren't any, or in other communities, will have the ability to start applying to get the state level permitting that's required to open an establishment. And then after that, at some point, I think July 1st.
There have been some towns, I think Littleton,
Mhm.
I think, extended the moratorium until December. I think, we're very fortunate. The working group that Alison and I have been working with it includes Russ Burke from the Planning
Mhm.
Board, Takashi Tada, Donnie Palmer, Steele McCurdy, Nick Gualco. It's a good group, and Russ has been helping us because the Planning Board ultimately has to come up with with the zoning amendments. And so I think the town of Groton is going to be ready when the Cannabis Control Commission comes out with their regulations to address it. There's a lot of good input that we've had. It's been pretty interesting looking at some of the regulations and some of the things that are happening. So it's pretty exciting. I think this survey will only help us really make better regulations. So we're looking forward to the results.
Just to throw out there too, one of the reasons that many communities are extending that moratorium is just in the offhand chance that the state actually not meet the deadlines that they've set, which are pretty aggressive.
Yep.
That, you know, one of the concerns is that if there are gaps whereby there's no state coverage or there aren't town regulations in place, and someone did file an application during that kind of undercovered period, then we wouldn't be able to regulate their presence. So it's something we may want to think about. It's very different. Extending the moratorium till December is very different than a ban of some sort, which would be a huge undertaking. So we're starting to understand what we need to understand.
And Takashi and Russ have attended a couple of statewide seminars on this issue as well.
Yep.
I think the town of Groton is going to be in great shape.
And Russ presented last Thursday to the planning board the first go round of draft zoning regulations that are being suggested, and obviously there will be tons of comment and hearings and things on that.
Thank you.
We don't want them to go up in smoke, so we're working hard on it. Want me to keep the humor to myself?
Just a few more minutes.
Once you find it, you should keep it to yourself.
Allison, you are the liaison to EDC, right?
She's on the
She is a
EDC.
member of the
Member,
EDC.
okay. That's right, it's different. So I haven't looked recently, but in the not terribly distant past, I looked and there were no minutes since like last March or April.
I just went through this with Mark, and he's been asked to provide an inventory of minutes. I noticed the same thing.
Okay.
We do have them. We've been approving them.
Yeah, we have to
tenure
work
there.
on how they get, there's a little disconnect from how they get sent to the website. So we're working on that. A memo went out today or tomorrow. We'll go out tomorrow on this very subject. So we are working on it, Becky.
And then also, last time I looked, they were a committee that on the town's listing did not list a regular meeting date, time, place, or a contact person.
Okay, I don't,
It's not on the website. We'll check that out tomorrow.
we
Yeah,
can,
that's something.
certainly, currently we're meeting the first and third Wednesdays at 6 o'clock, I believe, here.
Yep.
Yep,
pretty
and that
consistent.
goes through, I think, October, when it changed
Right.
to Thursday nights
Yeah, I just,
seasonally, so.
so maybe maybe the information didn't get to the right person,
Yeah, that piece, I don't know how it,
or maybe it has been changed since I last looked.
Okay.
Wasn't there.
Anything additional from either of the two of you?
No.
Very good.
Can you do the minutes in one motion?
I don't have anything at the moment. So we have 3 sets of minutes, October 2nd, 17th, and 23rd that need to be approved. Anybody have any comments on any of those? I want to offer a motion to approve all 3 sets of minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of October 2nd, October 17th, and October 23rd.
Second?
I just need to see one thing. I apologize. Bear with me for one moment. Computer is extremely slow. Apologize, one more second. All in favor?
Roll call.
Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, roll calls. I apologize, Barry's on the phone. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Manugie and I.
Aye.
Deegan, aye. Anything further?
That's it.
We are adjourned. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night,
Barry.
everyone.
Good night. Mark.